Good evening. This is Jeff with Astroscoop. This is Astroscoop Livestream number 14. Number 14. So today is Friday, March 29th, 2024, and I'm doing my live stream tonight instead of Saturday. Normally at Saturdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which would be 4 p.m. Pacific Time in the States. So happy Good Friday to everyone, whether you're religious or not, depending on what country you're from. I wish you a great weekend and a great Aries season, and I hope that you get special time with your family and friends, and maybe even some time with yourself, which is always a good thing. So welcome, welcome, welcome. We are in the thick now of Aries season. April 1st is Monday, and on last week's live stream, I talked about the Aries 1 period, which was the true Aries decadent, or at least in my system, is the truest Aries and the most raw form of the Aries fire personality. You can see that now every week the sun's changing, and now it's not dark here. And over here to the west of me is the beautiful sunset. Absolutely beautiful. So I wanted some of that sun to come in along with the lighting. And we're in Aries, so it's all about glow and energy and bright colors. That's what Aries is all about. So before we start, I mentioned last week that I was getting a lot of views from Russia, and that continues to be the case. I'm getting hundreds of views from Russia in addition to the United States, but Russia's number 2, which is interesting because that's never happened before. So I mentioned that last week. I just want to mention it again, and thank you if anyone from Russia sees this. You can let me know what kind of astrology you practice or what you believe in, and what drew you to my channel, what drew you to the channel in terms of content. So Russia, thank you very much. I think it's a really very interesting thing because I've had many different countries over the last few months with the majority of my views as I grow this small channel. But Russia is the most dense right now with views and viewers. So thank you so much. And I also wanted to mention that I'm looking at my stats here. 25 to 34-year-olds is my biggest group right now that's watching that. So obviously that's not my generation. So it's very interesting that 18 to 24 and 25 to 34-year-olds are my biggest demographics right now. And then there's a few in 35 to 44. 16% is 45 to 54. 55 to 64 is 8%. And 65 plus is 4%. So that's interesting. So thank you very much to all of you that are watching, if of any generation. But if you've heard any of my live streams before, you know that I'm really into the generational impact on astrology, the generational impact that astrology has on your generation, and also the perception and the view that you bring from your generation to astrology, whether it's modern astrology or traditional astrology. And excuse me, I'm having a little allergy thing going on today. Definitely spring. So, and the majority of the viewers, 79%, almost 8 out of 10 are male. In the beginning, it was more female. Now it's more male, and 20% are female. And that continues to amaze me. And then there's 82% of you that are watching my videos that are not subscribed. So please, please subscribe. A small channel like mine really needs every subscriber that we can get, every view that we can get. You know, every view and every subscriber I truly appreciate. And I'm building these stones and bricks, like these bricks right here, one at a time, slowly but surely. So again, it's however long it takes, but there are other small channels that I correspond with or that I followed that are relatively small in terms of YouTube standards. And you know, it's hard for small channels to get noticed and to grow. And so we need to support each other, and we need to get that subscriber base up. So again, this is just uh, content. This is free form content. The live stream is kind of what I talk about in my videos. So my previous videos, I kind of expound long form in the live streams here, and it's more free form. So, and if things come up, if anyone enters the chat and gives a question or comment, sometimes people have given me comments or questions out of the chat privately that they want to talk about. A lot of people do give comments on my videos. I'm surprised how many comments there are, especially on my older videos, which I didn't think did particularly well, but that are, I'm growing with a lot of my older videos. So I'm growing with those, not so much the new videos. So YouTube is, you know, a throw it up in the air, throw it in the wall, throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. So tonight we're going to talk more about Aries. And if you missed my live stream last week or the week before, I talked about the Pisces Aries cusp, which ended Pisces, and then we started Aries with spring on March 19th and the 20th. And that was still a cusp period with Pisces. And then right around the 25th or 26th, we went into the first decade of Aries. So we're still in that. Today's the 29th. We have the 30th, 31st, the 1st, and then the 2nd. So then right around the 2nd or 3rd of next week, the birthdays that I'll be talking about are the Aries 2 period. So this is the second decade of Aries, and there's a lot of interesting stars in the constellation for Aries 2 people. And the decanates really matter. I talk about the decans, which is just tens. It's the degrees, and some astrologers really, really put a lot of stock in them and some don't. But the degrees do matter because it's a true fine-tuning and understanding of how you tick. And if someone is a particular sign, or you have, you know, you have a loved one or a friend that says to you, I don't feel like I'm a typical Aries, right? I don't feel like I'm a typical Scorpio. Why is that? You know, often there's something else in the chart. There could be a grouping of another sign, or there's strong aspects with a configuration of other signs that give a strong difference from whatever zodiac sign they are. But often it's due to the decan that you're in, because that's why you'll meet Aries, Pisces, Aries cusp people, Aries 1, Aries 2, Aries 3, and then Aries Taurus cusp, which will be coming up in about 3 weeks. And meeting those Aries folks on each week are going to have basic Aries tendencies and traits from the fire element and the fire energy, but they're also going to have specific indicators of behavior, or specific temperaments, psychological temperaments that are more akin to the decan, the degrees, and some of the symbology of the stars, which is really fascinating. And there are immense books about the fixed stars and the constellations, and I've read some books, not some of the huge ones, but I have read some, and they are hard to get through. It is amazing. The people that have written those, thank you, because the amount of detail and commitment to collate all that information for all of us astrologers around the world to now be able to just transmit those ideas without us having to reinvent the wheel is wonderful. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. And it really helps. It really helps fine tune when we are trying to figure out what makes someone tick. Someone has a question, or we're decoding a mundane chart or an event that's happening in real time, or a natal or a birth chart of, you know, a loved one or a friend. Okay, I see someone's here. I think someone just entered. Welcome. So we're going to talk about Aries. And again, I encourage you, if you didn't see my live stream last week for the 22nd or the 23rd, please check that out, because that talks about more of the basis of Aries, or the essence of the early true Aries period, which we're still in for a couple more days. So one thing I want to say about Aries people, to all of you that are celebrating birthdays in the next 3 weeks or so, is Aries is the very first sign. Aries has the unique moniker of the very first sign of the zodiac of this planetary cycle that starts in late March. And that was a precession or an ingress that a lot of ancient civilizations followed. So they kind of followed the new year around March 20th or 21st rather than January 1st, which is obviously the calendar year. But a lot of civilizations followed that. So it's an amazing thing when you think of the sign of Aries. So any Aries planet in your chart or in a solar chart or event is going to have a certain unique thrust and energy to it that no other sign has, because there's no sign before it. You know, when we talked about Pisces, I talked about how Pisces had the 11 signs, the entire zodiac before them, and they were kind of cleaning up the zodiac, and they entered this the very last period of the zodiac, kind of like in terms of life, it would be kind of an older person at the end of their life. But the Aries is a true baby, like literally like being born, like a rebirth. So we're, like I said, we're continuing that through this weekend. But tonight we're going to talk about Aries 2, the Aries 2 period, and how it differs from the true Aries period that we're in and that we started right around the 25th or 26th. Now, I know some of those dates are a little skewed depending on what book you read or what columns you see on the internet. They're all a little different, and also they get changed. Other countries' systems change them a little bit, because over time, according to some people, there's that little shift. It's like I don't know what the word is, but it's like a constellation shift that's ever so slight, like a hair. So it's like every 10 or 20 years, it's a couple more hairs. So after a couple hundred years, it moves. And that's why some people feel like other systems of the zodiac are more accurate, because of that movement. But here we're dealing with the zodiac calendar. So Aries 2 period, Aries 2 here, is really all about the fixed stars. And the first Aries period was the week of the child, which is like a childish or childlike personality or disposition. And I mentioned various celebrities and famous people that were born this week that display, no matter how mature they are in their craft, display a certain childlike enthusiasm or childlike impulsivity and possibly immaturity as well. So the Aries 2 period, this runs from right around April 3rd to the 9th or 10th, or April 2nd or 3rd to the 9th. And so that's coming up. So that starts Tuesday and Wednesday. And this is getting into the middle, as far as degrees, this is getting into the middle of the road, smack dab, first week of Aries. I'm sorry, first week of April, Aries period, which is the degrees are right in the middle. So the first decan of Aries is ruled by Mars, and it's a co-ruled, the co-ruler is Mars. So there's 2 Mars influences. The second Aries period is a Mars person with the sun, with the sun influence. This is a Leo decadent. So it changes these Aries people dramatically from someone that's born like March 22nd, which is very early Aries, which is right when the spring equinox begins. So the Aries 2 person takes the raw, impulsive Aries energy, and it's more steady. It's a little more steady. It's a little more solid. And because of the sun Leo influence, it's brighter and stronger. So Aries people born this week are very much like the fixed stars. And these fixed stars all correspond with these degrees that are coming up in the zodiac. So if you know anyone that's born from April 2nd to the 9th or 10th, they're going to be somewhere around 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, right around 18 or 19, that period, degrees of Aries. So if you have an Aries planet, if you were to do your chart, or even do a solar chart of an event, if it had an Aries planet that was in those degree range, it would be correlated to some of these fixed stars that we're going to talk about. And they're very strong, and they're very different than the first Aries period. And this will give you good insight into Aries 2 people. So one of the first grouping is at 14 degrees of Aries, which is right around the 3rd. So anyone born on April 3rd or 4th will generally have a 14-degree Aries sun, but you can also have a moon. You could have any planet in Aries, and it could be around 14 degrees. So the two groupings is Andromeda, which is the chained princess in the mythology of it, and Cepheus, which was he was a dour king. I read an article and someone used the word dour. So I can't remember who that was, but I'd like to give that woman credit. But she used the word dour in terms of the mythology of. Now, I don't particularly see Aries 2 people as dour, but when I talk a little more about Aries 2 period, that might make a little more sense. So there's a princess theme there where her father, her mythological father, chained her to a rock, and obviously she didn't have freedom. So he was very efficient and took care of business, but that wasn't very sympathetic or kind, obviously. So the Andromeda energy, especially of a person born the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, go ahead and look up celebrities or musicians or famous people. You'll see something about these people that they absolutely need to be free of who they are. Even probably as much as like Aquarians do. It's almost impossible for them to relinquish their sense of self to other people. Now, that doesn't mean they can't back down and they can't accommodate and get along with others. They can, and they can often have a charisma with the public. But the Andromeda 14 degree at Cepheus, which is a Jupiter influence, I think according to Ptolemy, astrologer Ptolemy, he was a tough king, and that whole myth was very dramatic. So that time period, or that time period with the 14 degrees, is very interesting. So keep in mind anyone that you know that's born that time. And there's many others. There's the Eta or Eta Cetus, Theta Cetus, and Tau or Tau Cetus stars, one of which is the sea monster. One of which is the sea monster at 11 degrees. So that's a little earlier on. That's another fixed star. And the sea monster, I think that myth, the sea monster archetype tried to eat Andromeda, I believe, swallow Andromeda. So there was a correlation there between those people. So that's also very, very strong there. So there's a lot of big dramatic symbols here. When you have a princess king, a sea monster. Um, and that goes to Theta Cetus is 16 degrees, and the other one is 17. And those are all, when I looked up the constellations in astronomy, those are all very close to the sun. So they burn very hot and very bright to the sun. Now, I don't pretend to know a lot about astronomy and all the details and all the language of it. I do not pretend to know that. I am no expert in that. But I read a lot of articles, and it's interesting to hear about these stars, because if you think about stars burning a certain way and glowing a certain way, it gives you an indication of how that can trickle down into an event or someone's birth chart and someone's personality. And so that's interesting to me. Another one is Aldebaran. So that's Cepheus at 12 degrees. That's a 12-degree star. So that would be like maybe April 1st, maybe March 31st, April 1st, depends on the year, but that's early, a little earlier. That's right on the cusp of the Aries 1 and 2. So it could be either or, but it's in that constellation, according to my research. So that star is about ideas and honor. And of course, all Aries people are ruled by the head. So they do a lot with their head, and Aries people can be quite naturally intellectual, regardless of their education level. So whether someone's a high school dropout or a PhD in something, kind of similar to kind of an early Aquarius people who are often very self-taught and kind of precocious in that way as children. Aries 2 people can be the same way. Aries 2 people take the ideas of Aries from the first period and they make it more dramatic, more proud. Aries 2, because of these stars, these, I picture this in mythology. I picture this like a cartoon, and these creatures, so to speak, or these people are larger than life. And of course, there's that Jupiter there too. So this is all very complicated as far as fixed stars go, and there's some good astrology websites that go into great detail that talk about all these fixed stars. And thank you to all those people that do that, because that's a wonderful service. Just like the people that wrote books, it helps us astrologers to not have to reinvent the wheel when we're talking about ancient energies and ancient mythology that relates to the constellations and the degrees and the mathematical, pairings of in the sky, which is amazing to me. So I don't pretend to understand all those details. I try to sift through it and strain it for all of you in a user-friendly way that we can understand it and we can digest it. So these are very complicated here. So Aldebaran, ideas and honor. Honor is a big thing with this decanate. These Aries people are very proud. They're very similar to Leo people. They're very similar to Leo 1 people, which we'll be talking about in late July and early August, in about 4 months when we get to that period, when we get to the Leo 1 period. And I know a few Leo 1 people, and boy, are they proud. But they're double Leos. But for an Aries person, for an Aries who could be childlike and impulsive, to have a Leo influence, Leo is much more steady. The flame of Leo is much more steady. And Leos have to have impact. Leos have to influence. Impact, influence. They have to ignite something in their environment. Leos will not be ignored. So that also goes with these Aries 2 people as well. Even if they're shy, even if they're introverted, there'll be something about their personality that'll pack a punch and that they need to get noticed. And they will often feel bottled up or frustrated if they don't get noticed enough for their achievements or for who they are. So it's very important to them. So even if the honor is in a very small way, that's important. So another one is Nu Fornax, NU Fornax. That's another fixed star, which is the furnace. It translates to the furnace. That's 16 degrees. That comes from French. It comes from an astronomer named Lecaille. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. So that's interesting. That's 16. Notice 2, is it the dragon? That's 17, fixed star. So these are going in order, obviously. We're going from I went from 14, then we went 11, 12, 14, 16. And Delta Cepheus, 17, another monster archetype. I mentioned the Tau Cetus, which is super close to the sun. That one in particular burns really bright. So I would think if someone had a 17-degree Aries, even more than 14, a 17, and that also an 18 if the an orb just means what the allowable range is for it to conjunct and have influence on the native or situation. And most astrologers agree to 1 to 2 orbs. Almost all the books in history are usually 1 to 2 orbs. So it has to be pretty close. But if you're a 17 or 18 Aries, it's one of the stars that's closest to the sun in the atmosphere. So that's pretty hot. That person's going to have to be careful somehow in their personality where they're going to burn too hot or take things too far. Epsilon Reticulum, that's an interesting derivation of the constellation star there. That is literally, I guess, translated to star in one of the passages I read. It is a star, but it has a symbology of a star. So it's literally a star and also has a symbol of a star. So that's at 19 degrees, which would be, if the third is 14, so that would be around the 9th, the end of, or the middle of the following week, the middle of after next week. So if someone was born like the 8th or 9th, you'd have the Epsilon Reticulum, which is another interesting star. And I wrote all these down because I had a passage. This might be a little boring to you, but I wanted to give all the degrees. So any of you that are learning astrology, or if you're getting back into it, you'll have fun with the degrees because you can look someone up, either someone that you know or a famous person or a musician or a politician or an emperor or somebody, and take a look at those degrees to see, does anything match up with these symbols from myth. So I mentioned the Aries 2 period is very much to the fixed stars. This is, in personology, this is a star week. So it's as if the Aries 2 person needs satellites orbiting around him or her. This is where some Aries people, I think, are misunderstood with the other signs. I've heard some really bad things about Aries people on social media, about people dating Aries people, especially about Aries men, that are just wicked because someone dated 1 or 2 Aries and they think all Aries are like that. But here's a little secret about Aries 2 people is Aries 2 people because of the sun here, and I have to say the sun Leo influence. Here's my daughter again. So any of you that didn't see it last week, my Virgo daughter made this for me, this ram for me last week for the very beginning of Aries. And I just asked her to do something. And I think that's so amazing. So this is for my Virgo daughter. And then today I asked her to do a star because today is the ram meets the star because that's the Leo influence. And it's a star. It's, people born this week have to shine. And like I said, doesn't matter how shy or introverted. You'll know if you spend enough time with them, if you take the time to really get to know them and warm up to them, if you show your warmth, they're some of the warmest people in the zodiac. They have a strong heart center. They have a strong heart center with the Aries 2, the sun influence, and these fixed stars. There's a strong heart center there, but they need to be appreciated. If they're not appreciated, you'll see more of the hot fire and you won't feel the warmth. So again, you could give these Aries people some of your warmth and you'll most likely will get it back in spades. And so it's that sun influence. My daughter's star there. So very much these people need to be their own boss or leader. Now, all Aries people are very much suited for self-employment or to be the director or an administrator of a team or a club, whether it's at work, a company, corporate company, or community. But they need to do, they could make great bosses and leaders because they can really inspire people with their warmth and their direction. They do have to be careful with the bossiness. And I mentioned that several times about Aries. With this decan in particular, the Aries person can be bossy because they are a natural boss, but it's mostly to themselves. It's mostly that they're hard on themselves as far as achieving things, and they want to be their own boss. Doesn't mean they want to dominate or be against you per se, but it's like if they're part of a team, they might need a director or an executive person say, hey, you head up this team, here's your 4 people, but here's what I need you to do, but you do your thing. And that's where Aries 2 will shine. Absolutely will shine. And I knew several people in my childhood into high school or even into college. I had several acquaintances, both men and women, that were born during this period. I know one became a musician, a very good classical guitarist musician. Another one is a musician too, although he doesn't do it for work. He's a hobbyist. And so Aries 2 people this week can be, in their own way, in their own small way, very successful. That doesn't mean they're CEO of a company or they make, $200,000 a year or whatever. So success is different for everybody, right? But to them, they need to be noticed and they need to do their own thing with that Sun Leo decadent. It's absolute. They have to. And if they don't have freedom to do it, they can suck it up. They could be good team players for a cause. That's another thing about this decadent. And with these fixed stars, they're very, very strong. It's the most powerful Aries decadent in terms of impact, pure power. There's more staying power here than there is with the other 2 decadents that we'll be talking about. And then we really talk about staying power as we talk about late Aries getting into Taurus. Then we talk about some staying power. But there's not as much an ability to flip from one thing to another. Aries people put more of their heart in the Aries 2 period here with that Sun influence. So some of the symbology of the fixed stars here create a Saturnian or solar personality. And the solar part is the Leo part, the decan of Leo in the constellation. And the Saturnian part is more along the lines of the myths with that king or even princess mythology, king, queen, princess mythology, because that influence from these things that happened, influencing the fire of Aries. Aries people can be childlike, impulsive. Aries people can do things without forethought, but it doesn't mean that they don't take things seriously. And Aries in this decadent, because they strive more for excellence, I would say, with the Leo, because anywhere there's Leo, whether it's a decadent or a Leo placement, there's excellence there. And we'll talk more about that with Leo in the summer. But Leo energy is very unique in terms of their own excellence and the pride and the admiration they want from a job well done and their creative efforts. So Aries born this week can be quite Saturnian, can be a little more serious than you would think, and solar. And that means they are born to command. So even in a quiet way, they're born commanders. So that they're more able to command rather than direct others. So they might want to run things, whether it's above the scenes or behind the scenes. They might want to run things, but not necessarily do all the running, do all the grunt work and do all the day-to-day work and directing others. So those are kind of 2 different kind of leaders. Aries can do both, but there's more of a command with the Aries 2 decadent, whereas the other Aries decadents, I wouldn't call that commanding. The first Aries is pure Mars. And the next one, which we're going to talk about next week, is the Aries 3, which is a Jupiter decadent. So that takes on a whole nother flavor. So command. Now the solar influence of Leo, there's the symbology of a ram. Mars rules Aries, which is the ram. And in all these mythological cartoons, if you will, that play out, there's all these different creatures. And of course, there's the lion or lioness or a cat, motif with the sun, with Leo decadent. So Aries born this week can be very ambitious, but at the same time can be very lazy when something doesn't interest them. So if they're not going to get recognition for something, or something simply doesn't interest them, then they can be very lazy. And not usually for too long, but they have no problem being lazy for a day or two. They'll work their butt off for 1, 2, or 3 days. They'll work like crazy and they'll burn really hot and put all their heart energy into it. And then they'll be like, oh, I'm burnt out, or I'm not getting the accolades I wanted, so I'm just going to give this up for now, for a day or two, and they'll come back to it, sort of thing. So definitely more pride. Aries, when you think of pride, you might think of the fixed signs, but especially we think of Leo in astrology. We think of, we might think of intellectual pride with air signs. With Aquarius, Libra, and Gemini, it might be more intellectual pride. But for pure pride, personality, we think of Leo pretty much. But all the fire signs have that to some extent. But this Aries decadent would be the most for Aries. But they can also be very amiable. So as bossy and annoying as these Aries people can be when they want their way, they're usually very warm and very amiable. So again, it's how you treat them. If you warm up to them and you make it a point to be honest with them, that amiable, generous, warm personality will come and you'll feel it. You'll feel it. You'll feel it much more than the first decadent of Aries. It won't feel as childlike. It'll feel a little more mature, and it will feel a little more substantial for Aries. Some people think that Aries is not a deep sign, or Aries doesn't have a lot going on. Again, it depends on what's in the chart. It depends on your maturity level and your involvement. But Aries, I said this in one video last year, a positive, secure, mature Aries person, adult, let's say over the age of 35 or 40, can be wonderfully bright and extremely loving and warm, possibly even more than Leo or Sag. Can be possibly the most warm sign of the zodiac and the warmest sign of the fire signs, if they're treated right and they're feeling that energy with someone else, even if it's a group. So very important. Amiable. They're also charitable. I mentioned that this decadent, they have a lot of pride in what they do, but they can put a lot of energy into a cause. They're protective. So they can put a lot of energy into a cause, and they can suck up their ego for a cause. Not all the time, because they want that recognition, but they can suck it up for bigger causes, and they will fight for things that are in the dark. An Aries 2 person, I would think, with the star here, would want to shine a light on the darkness and bring things up, bring things out, and make things brighter. So that's one way to look at it as well. So lazy, amiable, charitable. Let's see how we're doing. Oh, wow, we're more than halfway already. Welcome. I think there's 2 people. Thank you so much for attending. I know this is going to take a while here. I have to think of some ways to advertise. If anyone has any suggestions on how or where to advertise my live stream, it doesn't cost too much money. That's reasonable. I've held back on a lot of marketing just for purely financial reasons, and I could be doing a lot more than I am doing. I have my plan. My mission is very, very kind of slow and steady trajectory for this year. So I'm sure I could inject things a little quicker. So if anyone has any ideas on where to advertise, for not too much money, I know all the social medias have promotions and everything, but I'm looking for reasonably priced things. And I know that there's things on the contractor, a lot of contractor people that are doing the promotions and stuff too, which I've done before. But if anyone has any comments, please comment below. And also, now more than halfway through, I'm just freeform. I freeform these every week. I don't know. It's hard for me to gauge what's boring to someone or what's interesting. So don't be afraid to say don't be afraid to tell me if something seems really boring. I know it might be just boring to you and not everyone else, but I want to get a general sense of what people want to hear, because I'll talk about almost anything. I can once my motor gets going, I can chat. Anyone that knows me in real life, not always. I could be shy, I could be introverted, but when I get going and feel comfortable with you, I can chat. I could, you could rap with me for hours. So I'm willing to talk about different things on here. And oh, Solitude with Self says, so glad we now in Aries season, slow and steady wins the race. I like that. Beautiful. You are correct. Yeah, and you know what? Solitude with Self. Aries people need that. Aries people, I'll tell you, Aries people, they get a bad rap. It's like, we all know, anyone that's into astrology knows it's probably Scorpio more than any other sign. Scorpio gets the worst rap. And everyone knows Scorpio people that are negative, and everyone knows probably one or two that are beautifully loving and protective and amazing, right? But Aries is similar to Scorpio. It's that Mars-Pluto thing. Aries is Mars. Now, this decan is ruled by the sun, so there's sun and Mars. So there could be a cockiness to Aries that is often just confidence. Now, some Aries people are cocky, and usually that's in youth. We're talking preteen, teenage, 20s. Hopefully by 30s and 40s, Aries people, let's move, let's grow out of that. You could have a little swagger to you, but cockiness is not attractive to pretty much 99% of the population. So Aries people, you don't want to be cocky. Confidence, though. So if someone doesn't like your confidence, oh well, then they might be jealous of you or envious, because Aries has a natural confidence. Almost all Aries people do. And I've known a lot of Aries people that have turned me off. And I thought, well, maybe I'm just in the wrong. Maybe I'm a little envious of their skills and, their popularity or whatever. So Aries, don't always assume if an Aries tells you something and they're like, look, I know this. And Aries is like, listen to me, I know this. It's not necessarily coming from a bad place. Now, if an Aries is prone to violence, or really impulsive, bad-tempered, hot-tempered, doesn't have, a really unstable personality, that's different. Aries people can go too far with things and can't go off the rails at times. All ages, all age Aries people. Aries people are fiery. They'll butt heads with you. There's no doubt. Male, female, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. White, black, Asian, alien, doesn't matter, right? Aries is Aries. So Aries is that energy. Aries is just energy. So don't think necessarily that because an Aries is so confident that they are arrogant or cocky. But Aries in this decade with the Leo have to be careful of that, because they can be. And there are a lot of celebrities and famous people that people get turned off by because they think, boy, this person is so, in love with themselves that they can't see the forest from the trees or anything else. So Solitude with Self says, even though we have a rep for being impulsive and fast, being the first zodiac sign, however, I have found with myself I need to slowly work towards my goals, because when I something I can't see because the heart's in my way. Oh, because when I do it fast, it crumbles. Yes, exactly. That's a really good point. So Solitude with Self, I really appreciate that. I hope more people see this. Here's a little secret about Aries people, especially this decadent, but all Aries people, no matter what their age is. Aries has Aries has that child in them. Aries has that baby in them that they want to be babied or mothered. Most Aries people don't want to admit that, but they do. As much as they want to be in charge, they want to be the boss, they don't want to need anybody because they're so independent. Aries has a soft, most Aries people have a soft spot way down underneath. If you can crack through the ram's horns, they have a soft spot. Now, don't take advantage of that. Don't take advantage of that. It's just like with Pisces. Pisces will sacrifice themselves, and people take advantage of Pisces. But that's a different like dynamic. But with Aries, Aries will give you the shirt off their back sometimes to a stranger they just met. You know, and they can meet someone at a concert or a show, or you know, and in 10 minutes that Aries can have rapport with someone. That's kind of the energy of Aries, right? But they can also make an enemy just as fast too. They can turn someone off and be rude, be annoying, and turn someone off, but they can also build that rapport and be liked by someone that quickly. So that's a secret to Aries, is that child. There's that youth, that beautiful youth within every Aries person, no matter what their age is. Talk to Aries people of different ages, you'll see it. Unless life has really hurt them. You know, if you're talking about like a war veteran, you're talking about someone maybe that's even overseas now and then coming back from all this stuff in the Ukraine and you know, China and Russia and all this stuff that's happening, that maybe they went through some things that burnt their you know, it blew their flame out, because these Aries people have such a spirit. So that child has a spirit there. So keep that in mind with Aries people, that no matter who they come from, where they come from, what their educational level, there's that raw there's that raw spirit. And if you understand Aries, the other signs that clash with Aries, I notice it's often they just don't understand where Aries are coming from. So, you know, and sometimes it's just going to be like, it's like, what's a classic sign? I'll talk more about Aries compatibility in future videos, or a live stream. I'll do it as well. Just off the top of my head, Aries and Capricorn. So Capricorn is the winter solstice. So late December up to around January 19th or 20th is Capricorn. So if you know anyone born those dates. So Aries and Capricorn is kind of a classic square in traditional astrology. It's a classic square aspect, and Aries is the ram, Capricorn's the goat. So Aries can really clash with Capricorn and vice versa. Now, often it's usually one of them that's doing more of the pushing and wanting to be in charge. So one of them provokes it, usually, and then the other responds. But they're both very strong signs. So I feel like if I was doing a reading with an Aquarius and a Capricorn person, you know, I would want to be almost like a therapist. I'd want you to, I would say to the Capricorn person, do you understand what this Aries person is telling you? Do you understand why they're being warlike, or why they're being defensive, or why they're butting heads with you? They're butting heads with you not necessarily because doesn't always mean fighting, right? Rams in the wild are not, they don't even really hurt each other. They're coming together like this and they're going boom, and it's dominance, and they're looking for their place on the mountain. So if people can understand that about Aries, there'd probably be a lot less strife in relationships with Aries. You know, but again, it depends on the maturity level. You know, young Aries, teenagers or early 20s, depending on the rest of the chart, it depends what your Mars sign is in, your moon, your rising. You know, depends on if you come from a tough neighborhood and you grow up like that. All that comes into play. But some Aries are physical fighters. You know, they're people that like look for a fist fight. And then some Aries people are metaphorical fighters. They fight with their mind, or they're spiritual warriors, or they pick a cause or something. They stand up for, you know, battered women, or they stand up for homeless animals, you know, or veterans, or some kind of cause like that, where there's an underdog or a vulnerable person. That's where an Aries 2 type of person can put their strength into, and their Aries energy. And, you know, it's just there. So that's a little kind of secret, I think, about a lot of the Aries people I've known, and I've clashed with Aries men and women. Uh, you know, the Aries planets are not easy. And if a let's say if you're born between like April 2nd and the 9th or 10th, which is the prime middle of the road Aries period after this week, which is the first decade after the cusp. If you know anybody born that week, they if they have another Aries planet in their natal birth chart, if they only have the sun in Aries, and let's say their Mercury was in Pisces, or their Mars is in Virgo or an Earth sign or something, that's going to change the whole landscape of their personality and how they use that fire. But if they also have another Mars in Aries, or they also have another planet like Mercury or Venus in Aries, which a lot of Aries people tend to have 2 planets in Aries. That's a lot of Aries. So they need something in the chart, or they need a discipline or a hobby to soften that a little bit, because they can be, they can run hot. They can run hot with that. I always talk about in my Aries videos and my fire sign videos, talk about Sag, Leo, and Aries, is they all burn hot. Even in mild personalities, there's still something in their life where they use that fire, a hobby or an interest, and they'll take things too far. And if things don't happen quick enough, they'll burn themselves out. So they have to recharge. So that's very important. So these Aries people, the negatives, they can be outspoken. Outspoken can be good or bad, but there's very little. It's usually, if you know someone born in the Aries 2 period, you know where they stand on things. They're not pretty much hiding. And again, that can cause conflict with other people with the honesty, but it depends on where they're coming from. They can self-destruct. I just talked about that fire. They can put so much heart energy and physical energy into what they're doing, whether it's a physical activity or a mental activity or a business or whatever, and they can self-destruct quickly. They want fast results, but if they're not taking care of themselves, they can self-destruct. Absolutely. And a lot of people in history in Hollywood, that's happened to Aries 2 people. And it's the fire element. So you just picture, a lot of astrology is just feeling it out, right? A lot of astrology, tarot, everything is just feeling it out. Like when the tarot people do readings, I'm seeing so many of the astrology videos aren't even astrology anymore. Like what I'm doing, I'm just doing astrology. They're almost all tarot. So I guess I'm missing the boat, because it's like almost everyone has a tarot deck, and then they're reading and feeling the energy, and they're working on, okay, let's see what's up for Aries. So that's what astrology is too. It's just feeling out. And if you picture in your mind, you just get a picture of fire. Picture what fire can do, both good and bad. You picture what a nice flame is outside on a chilly night in your fire pit that's nice and controlled, right? But then if it goes out on the grass and the dust, it gets unsettled pretty quickly. And the brush fires, wildfires. So fire is pretty amazing. So let's talk about celebrities. We're closing in on the hour. So these are celebs that are just Aries 2 people. So every week on my live streams, I try to talk about celebrities that are not just any governed under the sign in particular, but that are particular to what we're talking about on the evening. So last week I talked about Aries 1 celebrities, like Houdini, Harry Houdini, the magician, and early Aries people like Vince Vaughn, the actor, Mariah Carey, the singer. Look at their faces, look at their smile and how they laugh. Very childlike. And they're in their 50s. So again, the week of the child, those Aries people, Harry Houdini he did things that were so reckless, for a man in his 20s, 30s, and 40s before he died. It was like a 5-year-old, or a toddler. Like he did things with almost no caution. Yeah, like when toddlers they're 3 or 4 and they're jumping from on your couch to your chair to a table. That's a toddler, but that's what Harry Houdini did. So interesting. So these celebrities, one is the late Heath Ledger. We lost him way too early. He was an amazing actor. He's in Brokeback Mountain. He did a really amazing Joker in the Dark Knight Batman movie. And he he had amazing, bright, star quality about him. Amazing Australian actor. Eddie Murphy, of course, the famed Eddie Murphy. He has that. Eddie has that laugh. He has that way of talking, that like that laugh. I mean, that's so like attention getting, and he did that. He started to do that in the '70s on SNL before he like did stand up and everything, and he definitely has that Leo influence for an Aries because he burns bright, but he's steady. Like Eddie has an impact, and he's also controversial and has turned a lot of people off. Paul Rudd seems to be a very relevant actor these days in his 50s. And Paul comes from mostly theater. I think Paul did a lot of theater like in the New York City area when he was younger. And he wasn't too famous. But Paul's been in the action movies. I think he was in Ant-Man. He's doing the series Murders in the Building, where he has a major role on that series. And he's also done some comedies. He was in Night at the Museum. And Paul's very childlike also, but he definitely Paul has a little, I don't know if it's cockiness or swagger to him with his smile. And I feel like he's very, very typical of Aries too. He's definitely has some influence. Now, Marlon Brando, probably one of the best examples of an Aries 2 person. I mentioned him when I first started doing this channel. I think I mentioned him in my very first Aries video from a while ago, which isn't the best video, but you can check it out if you want. But I mentioned Marlon because Marlon was a true trailblazer, and he paved the way for so many actors and actresses in that time period in Hollywood. And Marlon was a double Aries, so he had so much impulsivity and fire about him. But being born in the Aries 2 period, he was able to stick to it. And he did a lot of different movies. And he had his own kind of way of talking that was very dramatic, kind of like a mumble. He had like a kind of a mumble thing that's very unique. So I think he really displays a lot of Aries 2 characteristics. Then we have Doris Day, another shining, kind of clean-cut actress from back in the day. Look up pictures of her smile. Like she's just so clean and so glowing. She almost looks a Leo to me. I don't know what her rising sign is, but definitely very, very, very energetic expression. Charlemagne, old classic ruler in history. Again, I mentioned the command thing, which is good and natural for Aries 2 people. Aries 2 people don't always want to be number one or in charge necessarily, but if they can command something in a relationship or in a job or in a partnership, they will feel more satisfied. So that's definitely something that those rulers that were born under Aries would have done back in the day. Robin Wright, I actually saw her in person one time when I was in San Francisco back in the late 2000s. I was on vacation and we were eating at a table, and the person I'm with said, "Don't look now, but Sean Penn is over there." And I was like, "Really?" So I looked. Sure enough, it was Sean Penn, the actor, the Leo actor, and then he was with Robin Wright at the time, and of course she was Robin Wright Penn at the time. So Robin Wright, and I mean to be with Sean Penn, talk about a troubled guy, troubled Leo, but also very talented Leo. You would have to be pretty fiery and tough to have any kind of relationship with Sean Penn, I think. So she's a firebrand, and she's underrated too as an actress. She's not talked about in the like Kate Blanchett or Nicole Kidman category, but she's good. She's a good, strong Aries. Betty Davis, troubled Hollywood star, kind of addicted to a lot of things in Hollywood. And she had a very strong and kind of aggressive stance on things. Of course, she wanted to be noticed. And of course, back in the day, in those times, imagine how hard it was if you were a woman to be noticed and to carve your way in with all those actors. To me, that would be almost impossible. But talk about the assertiveness of an Aries too, with the Leo flavor. David Robinson, he is or was the co-founder and drummer for the rock group The Cars. And one of my friends actually met him in a supermarket one day in Massachusetts and said hi to him. And he was just a regular guy. And he said, yeah, I love to play drums. That's all he said. He's like, thanks for listening to my music. He's just like a regular guy. But he's a really good Aries on the drums, really good beats, really good strong Martian beats in the Cars music. Earl Lloyd is one of the rare African-American Aries people that I looked up. He was the first African-American basketball player in the NBA. So imagine that achievement. Back, and that would have been late 40s and 50s into the 60s. That must have been next to impossible for him to get noticed. So for him to do that, the Aries fire with the Leo influence. Simon Raymond, he's a singer-songwriter from a group called the Cocteau Twins, which is very ambient music, very interesting, and has a lot of warmth to it. Listen to the Cocteau Twins. He injected a lot of good warmth into it. Ben Mendelsohn he's a really good Australian actor, and he's kind of like probably what Heath Ledger would have been, as Ben's in his 50s, and he's done various Netflix series, and I think he's also been in action or Marvel movies, and he's wonderful. He's amazing, underrated too. He's kind of like, to me, he's better than Hugh Jackman. Like Hugh Jackman and Hugh Grant and some of those actors are much more well known than Ben is, but I think Ben's a much better actor. He was in a series called Bloodline. Amazing. Played a rebellious kind of Aries character. He did it really well. And that reminded me of Marlon Brando too. Anthony Perkins. So any of you that like spooky horror movies, he was the epic Norman Bates in Psycho. And Anthony was a very kind of odd looking man physically. Didn't have classic looks really, but he was definitely, to talk about that independent streak and proud of doing his own thing. And in his own way in the Psycho movies, he commanded those movies, with his eyes and his presence. He was just a skinny, kind of nerdy guy, but he commanded it. He made you watch him. It's a little disturbing. We all know that Psycho is a little disturbing, the elements of it, but interesting nonetheless. So Anthony Perkins. David Blaine, the magician and illusionist. He's born this week, and very much like Houdini, he does kind of crazy stuff. He puts himself in ice, and all magicians are daring, but he in particular does some really crazy physical stuff that, he could literally die from. So either he's fearless or just foolish. I don't know. But he clearly wants to be noticed. And he seems just like a regular guy when he's doing his card tricks in his specials, when he's talking to people on the street. He just seems like he could be any everyday guy. But then he does these amazing things. So David Blaine. And the last one, I had more, but I ran out of room. Natasha Lyonne. She's an amazing kind of it actress right now. She was on Orange is the New Black, which is a really cool show. That was really well done. Amazing female actresses on there. And Natasha's also a show called Russian Doll. And then what's that other one she just did? There's another one. But she's really hot right now in terms of series. And she has a swagger to her, a female kind of swagger. I don't know how to explain it, but she's definitely she's very confident. She's got a good, like, smoky kind of voice, and she plays off her co-stars really well, including the men. Like, she goes toe to toe with them, and she's very opinionated in her roles. You could see the confidence, and she's got a good glow about her with her hair. Clearly, kind of an Aries to Leo influence. So that kind of rounds out the celebs. I had more, but again, I ran out of room here. But that's kind of good because we're past 8 now. Well, I really appreciate Solitude with Self. I really appreciate the comments. please tell everyone, please tell your family and friends. I'm very willing to talk about, within reason, if we're civil, good things on here and different things about astrology. And there's a lot of astrologers that are so, I hope that I'm not so, fixed in my thoughts that I'm not open to other people's perspectives and learning. I try to always be, because some astrologers that are on social media that get a lot of views, I'm amazed, because I would think they would turn more people off with how unbelievably opinionated they are. So just, I guess, everybody's taste is different. So before we go, I know you can't see it, but I'm going to take a look at our cosmic sky transits right now. And this is particularly for Aries people, but it can also be for all the signs, because the transits are always moving. And no matter what sign you are or what signs you have in your natal chart, something's happening either currently with the transits or something's happening behind the scenes with the houses. So I mentioned for the air signs, you're still laying low, not much happening with Gemini, Libra, and the Aquarius. We only have Pluto in Aquarius, which is just that outer planet, and Pluto will be there forever. So air signs, you're laying low, not much happening until we go into late May, and then we go into Gemini. But Aries people, we are now at 9 degrees of Aries. The node is at 16. And then Mercury, our thinking and communication and travel, technology, all that's governed by Mercury, is sitting at 26 degrees of Aries, which is getting late. So now it's getting to an Aries cusp, or Aries Taurus cusp. So it's getting closer to Taurus, and we're not even in April yet. And Taurus starts late April. So we have the outer Taurus planets, which is Jupiter and Uranus still. And we have those Aries planets. And then, of course, we have a huge amount of Pisces still. So all that Pisces energy from the winter, there's still a lot of residue there. So the Aries and the Pisces creating a lot of steam, a lot of water, and a lot of fire. And Mars is in Pisces now. It went from Aquarius to Pisces. So all this Aries energy is ruled by Mars and Pisces. So for all of you Aries people having birthdays, your solar birthday, your solar return is conjunct the solar sun, the transiting sun, but it's ruled by Mars and Pisces, which is really sensitive. So that's throwing kind of a monkey wrench into maybe how Aries are doing things lately. So we also have Saturn in Pisces, which is getting later. It's 13, right in the middle. Venus 22 Pisces, conjunct Neptune. So Venus conjunct Neptune, which Neptune is the Pisces planet. That's a Pisces dreamy influence, and then it's double Neptune. So there's a lot of dreaminess with love in the air right now, I would think. So be careful of being too impulsive, especially Aries people. Be careful of being too impulsive with love right now, and with all that Pisces, things can get a little fuzzy, a little fuzzy there. So we talked about that: the water, the air, the other Earth signs, Capricorn and Virgo. Not much going on there for the transits. Leo, you're laying low, and Sagittarius, nothing transiting except tonight is the moon is in your sign, so it's a Jupiter moon sign evening on the eastern coast here. So that is going to influence by Jupiter and Taurus, influence a good Friday night. I kept thinking tonight was Saturday. I was like about to say Saturday because I do my live streams every Saturday, but I'm busy tomorrow night, so that's why I'm doing it tonight on Friday. So I'm going to try to do it different times to get different people interested and involved. So that's about it. We could talk more about that in a future live stream podcast. We'll talk about the transits, and I have to find a way to share my screen. I know how to do it with other software, but I have to try to find a way to work that into what I'm using here for YouTube. So hopefully I can find that some way. So thank you to everyone that came in, and thank you to anyone that pops in for the replay. I appreciate you. Solitude with Self, thank you. And thank you for a couple of other people I know that were in here. I know who you are, and I just don't see your name, but I know who you are. Thanks for stopping by and being anonymous and hiding in the reef there. And to all Aries people, happy Easter, happy Good Friday, whether you're religious or not. Hope you have a blessed holiday this weekend with your family and friends. Get some rest and relax. And then next week, we're going to be in this Aries 2 period. We're going to be right in the thick of the fire of Aries, which is a really good time to set goals for yourself. Any sign, because any sign you have Aries in the chart somewhere. But for Aries people, especially born this week, Aries people will get their solar return, should hopefully feel good health, hopefully feel some energy. Even if you don't feel physical energy, you'll feel that mental energy. You'll feel fired up with your ideas. So that's a good thing. So happy birthday to all Aries people. We'll be talking about Aries again next week. If anybody has any ideas what you want me to talk about next week, it's an open slate. And I work on this a little bit during the week, and then usually by Thursday night or Friday, I finalize it. But we could talk about different things. But thank you for stopping by. Appreciate it. This is Jeff at Astroscoop, live streams every week. I have a new Aries video that will be dropping either tomorrow. I might not have time. It's either going to happen tomorrow or Sunday. It will be this Aries 2 video. So stay tuned for that. So I hope you all have a great weekend. Stay safe, and I'll see you when I see you.